Hi folks, this is All the Fruit, and today I'm foraging in the beautiful city of Milan in Italy. And let's start with this tree here, because this is maybe the most important tree we'll find here. So Milan in Italy, well, it's the biggest city in Italy, and climate and landscape wise is definitely not what most tourists expect from Italy. It's not a Mediterranean city at all. It is, well, when you judge by the climate and even by the mentality of the people, it's more of a Central European city, despite being situated in Southern Europe. It has a very harsh climate because it's situated in a giant flat area which is wide open to the cold winds from the Eurasian steppes in the east. So what climate does Milan have? Officially it's USDA Zone 8. I think by now, with climate change and the giant heat island, city heat island, about 5 million people producing a lot of heat in their cars and apartments and factories even more. Inside the city we might have 9A. What was the original vegetation around Milan? Well, probably it was not the typical Mediterranean vegetation. And here we come to this tree. A beautiful old holm oak, an evergreen oak. It's growing here nicely, and still I say the area here was not holm oak forest. The holm oak dominates the Mediterranean vegetation everywhere between North Africa and the Alps, between Palestine and Spain. But I don't think it dominated it here. I think here deciduous trees, especially deciduous oaks, dominated the area. Well, firstly, the climate is very harsh. That's a big disadvantage for the holm oak. The winters are very cold, and secondly, the area is very fertile, and I would say even in summer quite well supplied with water. In a very dry, poor area, it would have an advantage, even if it's a little bit colder in winter. But I think here it did not dominate, and probably didn't even grow in this flat. There are isolated areas of holm oak north of here, in the foothills of the Alps, where we have some subtropical microclimatic islands. But here, I'm sure it did not dominate. Still, you can see it grows nicely. If you take a mature holm oak and plant it here, it grows quite nicely. The holm oak is the most important indicator for Mediterranean climate, where holm oaks dominate the natural vegetation. You can say we have more or less Mediterranean climate. Here I would say we are on the edge of the Mediterranean climate. Now what can you do with this thing forage-wise? Before we had agriculture, let's continue walking. Before we had agriculture, this was one of the most important. Oh, and look at that, what have we got here? A catalpa. Well, before we had agriculture, acorns were among the most important sources of starch for the peoples of Europe and also of many other areas in the world. After agriculture was introduced, they were still one of the most important nutrition sources, but you would drive the pigs into the oak forest. This was like the most important use for those forests. And even nowadays this is done in some countries, mostly on a big scale in Spain and Portugal, on a smaller scale in Italy. So even nowadays this tree and other oak species feed a lot of people in the Mediterranean, usually with a detour through a pig's stomach. Yeah, city pigeons, those are naturalized in pretty much every city in the world. Only pretty desperate people eat them, because they're also called the rats of the air. They are considered to be about as dirty as rats. Yeah, but if you're in a pinch and not a vegetarian like me, totally edible. Another typical tree of the Mediterranean, of the Eastern Mediterranean, the fig, Ficus carica. Of course, it's being grown here, and it's getting naturalized in many areas of the city. But figs, they are not such a good indicator for Mediterranean climate, because they also thrive quite well in sub-Mediterranean and warm temperate climates. A pretty temperate tree, a lime or linden tree. This wouldn't grow well in the really warm zone 10 areas of, let's say, the Italian Riviera or the Sicilian coast. It has very nice flowers which you can make into tea. And yeah, flowering season is over already. This has been quite a moist spring and early summer. We are in mid-July now. Here you see the purslane. Basically the most favorite edible green of the ancients. Why? Well, the ancients were very big at eating greens in winter because the Mediterranean winter is usually quite mild, and in autumn, winter and spring you can forage a lot of greens. But the summer is usually up to 6 months of drought with very few greens. However, even if you have rainfall every couple weeks in summer, one such rainfall is enough to produce a lot of purslane plants which you can then forage and eat. They are very healthy and very tasty. And since, yeah, in winter you had a lot of things you can forage, but in summer the only green that would be readily available, even after rare rains, is the purslane. It was extremely favored by the ancient Romans, Greeks, and so on. Holly, an evergreen plant, very common in the Mediterranean, but also in the Atlantic parts of Western Europe. It's being used as a medicine if you are in a pinch, but nowadays not anymore because it's quite harmful. So I'm not gonna cover it here. Yeah, as you see, quite lush for mid-July. Here you have some amaranth you can eat, some small black nightshade, too small to eat. Well, yes, you could eat it. The Africans, they make it into spinach, but the Asians, for example, wait for the fruits and it's too small for fruits. Here also dandelion, very good to eat. Wood sorrel, plantain, they are all nice and edible. Pity humans don't eat grass because otherwise even the grass is lush enough now. This stuff is maybe a little bit too short to go foraging here because it has been cut down a lot and it has also been fertilized by dogs a lot. Over there you have a plot which has a small area which hasn't been cut, maybe better for foraging, but that's not gonna stop the dogs. Don't forage the toxic oleander. It's a native of the Mediterranean but not of this region, but it's incredibly toxic. Very popular because it flowers in summer and doesn't need much care, but stay away from it, it's too dangerous. This area is very interesting for me because it's, oh, here by the way, another type of wood sorrel, a pink one. They're all very tasty but contain a lot of oxalates, so just eat them like you would eat any other snack. Don't confuse them with real food. What I wanted to say, this area is very similar to my area in Germany. It has a similar geology because both the Po River and the Rhine River where I live come from the Alps, from limestone Alps. They are both giant flat areas. Here, by the way, the invasive Indian strawberry. They are both giant flat areas. They both have quite a harsh climate in winter. My area in Germany is maybe 2, maybe 3 degrees colder. But climate change is changing this all the time, as the name says. So basically, the stuff you could grow here in the 80s, pretty much all of it you can grow in my part of Germany now. And the stuff you can grow here now, you will be able to grow in Germany soon. And the sooner you try it, the sooner you will be able to grow it. Here, by the way, some rosemary and sage bush have been planted, and some wood sorrel, and purslane and parietaria have sprouted between it. Actually, you can even eat the buds of the yucca, but they are not too palatable. Oh, look at that here. Somebody planted Pittosporum and then he planted this Solanum in between. And I guess somebody threw away a peach seed. Or maybe it is planted. It seems like it grows out of some sort of plastic bag. But look at that. It's full of peaches. They are not ripe yet, but beautiful. This is definitely a seedling. And I don't know if anybody even tried to plant it or just let it live because, well, it makes peaches. So my concrete goals today in this part of Milan are I'm I got out at Milano Lambrate, one of the many train stations of this giant metropolitan area. First I want to visit the Botanic Garden in the Città dei Studi. Seems to be some sort of university botanic garden. And then I want to find an avocado which grows out here without protection. By the way, here in the background, a big loquat. Those are also becoming more and more popular in Germany, but they don't fruit regularly yet. But let's see, if we take selected plants from here, which have grown for decades in Milano, and are maybe several generation plants, then maybe we have a chance. Wow, here somebody has really made a forest out of their balcony. I totally approve of this. And a lot of those trees seem to be Pittosporum. And since the Pittosporum roots in this exposed location haven't frozen, that's quite nice. However, the balcony underneath, it seems like somebody has been gone for weeks or even months because all our plants are dead. Here again the Solanum, a couple lusher specimens. Please tell me what it is, I forgot the name. It's something very similar to peppers. I think it's in the genus Capsicum, but what species? I must say the city looks really temperate Central European with a couple like heat-loving Mediterranean plants. Basically at the base it's all Central European, but there is a plethora of Mediterranean and other plants planted here, which I think most of them would have been successfully grown here only in the last couple decades. Here we have an olive tree, the other top important climate indicator in the Mediterranean. Like in the natural vegetation it's the holm oak, in agriculture it's the olive. Look at it. How old would it be? This is a couple decades old. This was definitely planted in the 20th century, but I don't know exactly how they are slow growing. Well, in the 20th century there were no olive growing areas here around Milan, and I think even now nobody would try to grow them commercially. Like a couple years ago, a passion flower collector nearby told me a couple years ago they had a frost of minus 16 degrees. That's really borderline for the olive tree. There are some hardy varieties where the trunk can stand minus 20, but minus 16, that's in the 21st century, that's extreme even for my part of Germany, and they had it here in the nearby city, near the nearby city of Cremona. So I don't think anybody would grow olives here commercially, but they grow them in parks and gardens because they're a very typical Mediterranean/Italian plant. So you can grow olives successfully only in Mediterranean and very similar climates. South of the Mediterranean Sahara, in the Sahara, it's too dry. East of the Mediterranean, in the Arabian and Central Asian deserts, it's too dry and too cold. Northeast in the steppes, it's too cold. North into the Alps and Germany, it's too cold and too wet. Northwest into France and northern Spain, it's too wet. So basically you grow those things in the Mediterranean. Here, by the way, a nice big fig tree. Unfortunately the season is not there yet because we had a cold and wet spring. Well, so the olives are a perfect climatic indicator for Mediterranean climate. The fact that you can grow them successfully in the city of Milano and even in the outside areas shows us a lot about climate change, but, well, they are an important crop on the Mediterranean coast and even in the Italian lakes in the Alps north of here, in the Big Po Flat. I'm not aware of any olive cultivating areas, except in this very mild regional climate around Lago di Garda. Black locust, an invasive from North America. Very good timber. Every part of the tree is poisonous except for the flowers. They are tasty and edible. Couple specimens of the Himalaya palm, which is becoming invasive in the mildest areas of the Alps. It's quite tasty. The heart of palm is not bad, but like with most palms, you need good tools to get to a good size heart of palm. Is this private? Because there is a fruiting cherry plum here. See all the fruits. It might be nothing special and nothing rare, but they are good fruits for eating. Here a laurel cherry from the mountains of the East Mediterranean with black fruits, unfortunately not in season. A big hackberry. One species is native to the area, but I don't know which one is this now. Big tree. Also nice and edible fruits, but not in season. Oh yeah, but here is a cherry plum. Oh, and somebody has picked all the reachable fruits. Nah, I'm too lazy to jump now. Another cherry plum, the purple-leafed cultivar. No, they have taken all the fruits, yeah? Here more cherry plums. There is not much stuff forageable right now, so people take whatever they can get. Elderberries, those are not very palatable raw, but once you cook them, you can make a lot of nice foods and drinks with them. Black walnut. In mid-July, well, there might be already something edible inside the nuts, but again, I'm too lazy. I want the low-hanging fruits, and I want to get to the botanic garden and to this outdoors avocado ASAP and then go to other areas of Milan. Here, by the way, a small pomegranate. I think now with climate change, it would totally fruit and ripen around here. For people who are not afraid from dog pee, this would be a nice area for foraging, especially if you put everything over a fire afterwards. Plantain leaves. Well, the Africans also would love those lush, fresh black nightshade leaves. What else? Yeah, yummy pigeons, I know. Well, here, yummy lush dandelion. Galinzoga. Oh no, I thought I saw galinzoga, but it's not galinzoga. Just beware of the pokeweed in the background, and here is some more. Theoretically, it's edible if you know how to detoxify it, but enough people have died trying, so stay away. Also, I'm wondering what this is. It seems to be something similar to pokeweed, but it's not pokeweed. Or maybe, well, I'm not aware of. I'm aware of 3 species of pokeweed, and this is none of them. What is this? I think it's some Solanaceae. Here are some flower buds, but still too small. Okay, have to find bigger plants and identify it. It might be something interesting. As I said, the countryside is very similar, and the climate is just a bit milder than Germany, than my part of Germany, than the Upper Rhine Valley or the Upper Rhine Flat. So everything that grows here has a good chance to also grow in Germany now, or at least in a decade or so. Here, by the way, among those pigeons, they are lying among mallows. The mallows are, of course, also edible. And here, a very important climate indicator. You see this little cereal, this little grain, this little barley. It's the mouse barley, Hordeum murinum. Before climate change in southern Germany, it was a village plant. Only the villages and towns were warm enough for it. In northern Germany, it was a city plant. I mean, in southern Germany, villages, towns, and cities were warm enough for it. In northern Germany, only the bigger cities were warm enough for it. In the Rhine Flat, it could also grow outside of villages in some areas. Here in the Mediterranean, of course, it can grow in all areas except the mountain areas. Very important climate indicator because it's a weed, very common, and can be used easily to detect the microclimate of an area. Just don't let your dog into it. It's very dangerous for dogs because the pointy pieces of the inflorescence get everywhere into their paws into their ears, into their mouth, and can harm your dog severely. This little mint here is some calaminta. It's one of the best smelling mints. I'm just too lazy to bow down and smell it. Yeah, this is gonna be more a show video than a taste video. Here's Sophora japonica, a Japanese tree which is supposed to have edible flowers, but I tasted them yesterday on a tree which was flowering and they were bitter. Oh, and look at that, coincidentally, not even for the video, I have one of those with me. Look at that. This is the wild form of the lettuce. Here I have a lettuce with me to eat it, not to film it, but of course you can also use it in a film. This is the wild form, Lactuca seriola. Lactuca lettuce, the same name but in Latin. One of the plants humans have changed until they are not recognizable anymore. But if you leave the lettuce grow tall and flower, it will look like this wheat. A hazelnut, however, this is not the local Corylus avellana. This is Corylus colurna from the East Mediterranean. Oh well, colurna is bigger on average. And they should almost be in season, yeah. Here is a piece. An interesting thing, when you open them with your teeth, don't do this because it's bad for your teeth. But the calyx, the sepals, are tasty and sour. And the hazelnut is one of the few real nuts because the nut is not covered by a fruit like in a walnut or in a coconut. Every time I see this beautiful tree, I remember the power of climate change. I read a German book from the 30s where they said, we are acclimatizing more and more magnolias in Germany and can already grow a lot more than our ancestors could grow. But there is one magnolia we will never be able to grow in Germany and we'll always have to enjoy only in southern countries. Beautiful Magnolia grandiflora. Yeah, by now, Magnolia grandiflora grows quite well in my part of Germany. Climate change and intense breeding for generations have made it possible, but 100 years ago, those would just freeze wherever you planted them in Germany. Hibiscus syriacus, the Syrian hibiscus. As the name suggests, it comes from the Syrian, from the area of Syria. And as the name suggests, it's the national flower of South Korea. And as the name suggests, flowers and fruits are edible and kind of tasty. One more. Good forageable stuff. A black pine, Pinus nigra from the Eastern Mediterranean. Seeds, young cones, and pollen, and also the very young sprouts are edible. A very hardy species from the Eastern Mediterranean, which is being planted also here because it can deal very well with drought. So this ancient olive tree puzzles me. It's not supposed to exist here. This is, unlike the one I showed you before, well over 100 years old. Probably even well over 200 years old. How does it come here? Well, look at it. There is a ring around it, an elevated ring. I'm 100% sure this was dug out. This has been dug out somewhere, probably in southern Italy. Transported here by truck and planted here. You can see it has been pruned, it has been shortened so that it can fit on a truck. Olive trees, even really ancient ones, react quite well to pruning and to transplanting. And it's quite popular to plant, well, it's unfortunately quite popular to destroy areas where ancient olive groves exist. It is quite popular to dug out some olives and plant them somewhere else. And this is definitely dug out from somewhere and planted. Parthenocissus trichospidata, the grapevine from East Asia. The grapes are not edible, but you can tap it in spring, just like just like maple, for a sap from which you can make syrup and wine and sugar and so on. Here a feral white mulberry, introduced for its leaves, which you use to feed silkworms, which then make silk. But there are some varieties which also have supreme fruits, and there are also a lot of ornamental varieties. So here I'm entering the University Botanic Garden, the new Botanic Garden of Milan, and I'm gonna do a separate video. Oh, what the... That's not funny. That's not funny. That's not funny at all. Why the fuck don't you put this on fucking Google, man? I'm walking for hours in the scorching sun, and you bastards are on summer holidays and don't even write it? Fuck you. I'm really pissed now. Especially since they have a lot of interesting stuff there. Look at that. They are mocking me with this picture of the water nut or devil chestnut. Why don't you put this shit on Google, man? I checked your opening hours. And I checked them again now. Google says you are wide open, you piece of... I'm not the only one who is upset about this. Well, you should be glad I didn't know that, because otherwise I would have taken a bus to the location of the avocado tree, and you would not have seen this video. German medlars and a collection of grapevines, by the way. I'll just tell everybody it's not that good anyways. Let me in! The poisonous Chelidonium maius, I don't even know the English name. It has an orange sap. Stay away from everything with an orange sap, folks, it's toxic. This is so toxic that you can use it to remove warts. It's not as effective as modern acids and other things, but if you put it on your warts, I don't have warts to demonstrate it right now. If you put it on your warts regularly, even the super thick skin of your warts will finally die and the wart will fall off. But don't try this, because it is considered a little bit too toxic to use it for such purposes. Very boring botanically compared to the Italian coast, especially to the subtropical areas of Liguria or even to the Italian lakes in the Alps. But that's the interesting thing for me, folks. It is boring compared to the top regions, but it's similar to my boring region in Germany. And that's why stuff from here has a good chance to grow very soon in Germany. So in this case, I don't mind boring so much. Here, by the way, Parietaria. If you like to eat stinging nettles, which are among the tastiest and healthiest and most nutritious in terms of real nutrient content greens you can forage in huge amounts, you can forage Parietaria instead. It's a relative of the nettle, but without the stingers. Here we have Rubus caesius, the blue blackberry, but it's not in season. In my frustration, I'm destroying the poor, helpless lettuce. Elms and limes. The way that you are supposed to be able to make good ropes from the bark of those two trees. And since unlike in tropical areas, here in temperate areas, good vines and other good sources of strings and ropes are rare, you should remember those trees for a real survival situation. Of course, it's you have to peel the bark and then kill the branch or the whole stem for that. We don't just do it for fun now. But since I have to kill enough trees anyway, I might do it for demonstration purposes. Here this is quite interesting. I think neither this apple tree nor this mulberry tree were planted. I think the mulberry tree was planted when some bird dropped the seed here, and the apple tree was planted when somebody threw their apple core. into the park. There must have been something completely different growing here before this forsythia and maybe a couple other bushes which got out-competed by the feral trees now. Yeah, some people really trying to bring the garden into the big city. That's interesting. Cacti growing outdoors here. I wonder how many years they have survived in those pots. The nopales and the fruits are edible. Those have no fruits, but those big things people call leaves are also edible. Oh, and look at that. A big banana jungle. Unfortunately, I can totally guarantee you that this is Musa basio, the Japanese fiber banana, without edible fruits. But it can still be a very important climate indicator for us. There are a lot of things this banana is gonna tell us. Well, first it's gonna tell us don't get run over. Crossing the street without dying, check. So look at that, those bananas are pretty tall. In harsh climates like the Balkan mountains, they stay short. In Germany, they will also be considerably shorter than here. The tallest one would be probably the size of those here. In even milder parts like the Alpine lakes or the Ligurian coast, they will be taller. Also, who took all the buds? That's interesting. So here they are pretty tall. That means they didn't freeze back in winter. Also, if you look, there are a couple old leaves, quite battered by the wind, but not too much. I would claim that a lot of those leaves have survived the winter. So a pretty mild winter here. This is what the banana told me. The last winter was pretty mild. It doesn't tell me too much about the generally mild climate because this one is very frost hardy. As I said, it grows even in Germany and even in the harsh Balkan mountains in Bulgaria. But it tells me that this winter was not very harsh here. You recognize Musa basio by the yellow inflorescence, yellow flowers, yellow bracts, and by the tiny fruits. Those are not gonna get bigger. They're gonna stay this size. And there is not even really edible pulp inside. So it's a nice plant if you want to bring a tropical feeling to a cold area. I would even say it's maybe the only one I would really recommend for Milano. People are attempting to grow a lot at the in the milder areas of the Alpine lakes here in Milano. Yeah, I could recommend a couple other ones, but I understand why they stick to Musa basio. But yeah, good that I saw it because it told me a lot of things about last winter. But now I have to find other indicator plants to confirm or disprove the indication I got from this banana. I should find some old black nightshade and its relatives because they can also tell me a lot about the weather here during last winter. Let's see if they will confirm what I learned from the banana. An agave growing in this pot. The heart of the agave is edible and full of sugar, but also full of oxalate. So you have to know which agave to use and how. But it seems like this thing has been sitting here for years, which means that for years the climate here has been mild enough for it. I'm sure every 5 or 10 years this will die around here. The area is not that mild yet, but it will survive an average winter. Also a very important climate indicator, but of course I don't know the exact climatic requirements of this agave. Also, yeah, I've eaten them a couple times and it was always a bit of a spiny experience. The flowers of the red clover are also edible, and also approaching the area with the avocado. I'm really curious. They say the winter 2022, let it suffer a lot. Let's see if it has recovered. This winter from the bananas, we say, was mild. Prunella, also an edible species. A very sheltered area. I wonder if those are being moved indoors or if the semi-enclosed area, there is glass up there, is enough to protect them. The Pittosporum should be okay. The Yucca probably also. Not exactly sure which Araliaceae this is. Tell me, would you leave them out like this in winter or would you bring them in? Oh, and also another one of those nice Solanaceae capsicum thingies. Wow, this spike lock has become a natural habitat. See the algae growing on it? I think it has been parked here for many years. A motorbike they would have definitely removed already. The city would have removed it, but just the lock, I guess they are treading around it. A bunch of old, really old, nice Vitex agnus castus shrubs. And I think it might not be a coincidence they are growing here right in front of this big cathedral. Monk's pepper, Vitex agnus castus. Agnus castus means the chaste lamp. Well, nowadays it's a medicine which is used commonly for female problems like menstruation, menopause at all. It gives you a healthy female hormone balance. However, it gives you a healthy female hormone balance no matter if you are man or woman. So in the Middle Ages, it was used mostly on monks. You know, those people who have a vow of celibacy. Well, if you are young and horny and have done a vow of celibacy, this bush here will help you keep it. Those are really ancient ones. I think they must have been in front of this cathedral for many decades. They have been pruned. I don't know if to keep them in shape or because they are freezing here from time to time. But those are ancient. Those might be among the biggest I have ever seen. Yeah, also, well, they come from warmer like Central and South Mediterranean regions where they grow in the rivers. They have a similar function than like willows in colder areas. And just like willows, the young stems are incredibly tough. You can make baskets, ropes, and a lot of other things from them. Yeah, but those are beautiful, beautiful, ancient big plants. For Vitex, this is amazing. This is surprising. Can we see? Here you can see the rings. Can you see how fine the rings are? Those should be 10, 20, 30, 40. Well, this stem here alone, this branch here alone seems to have been over 50 years old if I just put this more or less here. You can also count them. I think it's not too hard for you to count them if you pause the video. I'm too lazy. But if you say this branch was 40 to 50 years old, then those shrubs are really old. The bases are sometimes almost half a meter thick. Amazing. Here another one has been cut away. You can see very numerous thin rings. Pause it and tell me how many years are those. I know it's hard, but try it. Do it for me. Oh yeah, of course people have used them for their natural desires whenever a bathroom doesn't present itself. They have a wonderful crisp, sharp smell. Yeah, also crisp, sharp taste. Oh well. You think this works on me? I don't want to do nudes the whole bush. Spicy and a bit bitter. The fruits also taste similar like this, like a spicy minty pepper, but also a bit bitter. Good enough to be used as a spice, and since it has an additional effect, yeah, quite useful for monks in old times and for millions of women with different problems nowadays. Beautiful. I've seen some shrubs of similar size, but I think those, also because they are cut, they are pruned, and so the thick trunks show even better. Firethorn, only used as an ornamental, it is an impenetrable spiny hedge in Europe. The fruits are totally edible and can be made into a lot of jams and preserves. And in some parts of North America this is being done. They are foraged from the wild and from parks, and maybe even grown by some people for the fruits. But it's one of the countless plants which we in Europe only know as an ornamental. What a waste. I've reached the street where the avocado is located, Via Luigi Frappoli, but of course I don't know if it's still alive. Wish me luck. Didn't have luck with the Botanic Garden, now wish me luck at least with the avocado. Got it! Somebody is doing a fruit orchard here. Look, a plum, a peach, a cherry, or there is another plum, but I was too eager to see the avocado. And here it is, folks. The avocado's much further north in the world, but this might be the tree growing in the harshest conditions anywhere in the world. And why is it tied with a big rope? Are they afraid they're gonna carry it away with me? Oh no, look, there is big damage at the base. Some nice person has planted it, but the people who are cutting the grass here are idiots. Look at that. How many times they have severely damaged the base. It's horrible. Almost missed it. Another nearby avocado tree. Like the bigger one is over there. You can see it between the peaches and cherries. Here is another tree, much smaller. I wonder, let me see. Two stems. I would say probably there was a main stem that died back. This one looks very different. Even the foliage looks different. Interesting. Could be a different variety, or could be that they are both just seedling trees. I don't know. I think maybe the main stem died and then two suckers came up. What do you think, folks? There is some type of citrus growing nearby. I'm going in. And an olive. Of course, the olive is not so amazing. But what is this citrus? Spines, but just a couple and not too long. Here are the leaves, slightly elongated fruits. Looks like a lemon or lime or something. Oh, look at that. Hey, wait. Those are two different, those are several different things grown on the same plant. I need a video for this.